You know, you've got to...
Welcome to Hollywood Center Studios in Los Angeles. This is where contestants from all over North America show the world what their destructive robotic creations can do. Hi everyone, I'm Pat Rogers and welcome to an inside look at TLC's Robotica. We're going to take a look at 4 teams, all of which have their eyes on the championship prize. You know, almost anything can happen here at Robotica, especially with such a dangerous and deadly array of diabolical weapons on these bots. For a closer look at the weaponry here at Robotica, we go to Dawn Huser in the pits. Dawn?
Pat, as you know, the weapon that you place on your bot can make or break your appearance in the show. And many designers have interchangeable weapons depending on the opponent and the event. Now, here's a review of some of the weapons that we've seen so far. Pneumatic flippers, spinning saws, shooting spikes, jaws that could crush a refrigerator. The fun of Robotica is not just learning about the weapons, but seeing them actually work in combat on the course. The rules clearly state that all bots competing on the show must include an active weapon of some kind, a remote-controlled device of destruction that operates independently of the drivetrain.
Kinetic energy weapons are the best because you can store a lot of energy and deliver it all in one quick hit. And these usually involve spinning masses and things like that, drums and discs. Probably the least effective weapon is a saw of some sort. The reason for that is if you think about, using a skill saw to cut a 2x4, you realize how hard it is to really hold a skill saw. You have to press hard, you have to get the cut straight, and you're just cutting wood. Now imagine putting that on a radio-controlled platform, trying to pilot it from 50 feet away, and using it to cut through some metal. It just doesn't work.
We've seen some unusual weapons so far this season. Dave Hall's DeClaw uses an articulated robotic arm and a custom-built claw to put the pinch on other bots. Tim Berghofer's bot Jawbreaker's Revenge features a pneumatic jaw that packs 3,000 pounds of force at the actuators. Chris Hanold's Mini Rip sports a spinning 10-inch steel disc with tiny hammers attached. David Gilson's The Tick boasts a spinning drum married to 6 chain sprockets. But perhaps the most feared weapon this season belongs to Jeff Sesnick's Ultra Violence. This devastating steel blade weighs 10 pounds and measures 12 inches in diameter. With 4.5 horsepower behind it, it spins at 5,000 RPM, and anything that gets in its way usually pays the ultimate price.
The Tigers' days are over.
Time now to check out the weaponry on board the 4 bots appearing on this season's 6th new episode of Robotica. We'll begin with Rambot.
Dawn, Rambot is the perfect name for this fearsome 4-wheeling machine. With the help of 4 external high-torque wheelchair motors, this bot has more than enough ramming speed to dominate any opponent. Its creator is Dr. Tom Sweeney, an orthopedic surgeon from Sarasota, Florida.
The biggest problem was we'd never done anything like this before. I mean, I'm a surgeon, and we play sports. And really, we'd done a little RC in the past and built a treehouse, but that was it.
Sweeney and his 2 boys, Tommy and Sean, laid out the plans for their dream bot on the garage floor. They called in family friend and engineer John Ziznemersky to help out. And Rambot soon became a reality. Working together, there was never a shortage of new ideas.
That was probably our greatest problem, because every day for about a month, we'd go out, we'd make small changes in the design, have to go back in, recalculate the weights, and finally try to get it in under 210 pounds.
They settled on a robot with 2 different strategies, depending on what event they're competing in. For the gauntlet and fight to the finish, low-profile wheels and a front wedge. For the labyrinth event, larger wheels and a front bumper. But there is a prominent part of Rambot that doesn't change. Its weapon, a pneumatic ramming device.
Basically, it's a large compressed tank of air connected to a certain series of valves and then a large cylinder. And when it's deployed, the cylinder pushes it out in a mechanism like a syringe, and so that we have a hardened tempered steel point that comes out the front of the robot that should be able to pierce some forms of armor.
Compared to other weapons we've seen this season, Rambot's spike may seem fairly tame. However, it can puncture another robot with 1,800 pounds of force in under half a second.
The pneumatic ram, if we could stabilize, put some sort of blocks in the back of the wheel so it would not move, or fix it to something, it would go through, say, a house wall without any problem, made out of brick or cinder blocks.
Opponents should also fear Rambot's drivers.
We play a lot of video games on the computer and Nintendo, so we're really used to all the controllers and different types, and so we think we're going to do pretty good.
14-year-old Tommy and 13-year-old Sean are probably more prepared for what's ahead than any other first-time competitors this season. They're ready for the gauntlet.
Well, we live in a cul-de-sac, so we set up bricks and some cinder blocks, and we busted through those just to see how we could handle it, and we handled it pretty good.
And they've already taken on a labyrinth of their own.
We tried to build rollers, they weren't the best, but we also built a jump and speed bumps and sand pit, and just everything that we could, just to prepare.
So the boys have been working just as hard as Dr. Dad.
Yeah, like every day after school and all over the weekends. Yep, we've been staying up late just trying to get it done.
Pat, the two younger Sweeneys will drive against Dark Track, a bot that looks ready for battle on an actual battlefield. Texan Russ Barrow is the builder, and he has designed his bot in true tank form with steel treads.
The advantage to a tank over wheeled bot is that you can easily go over anything. Anything gets in your way, instead of kind of to slam through it, you just go straight over the top.
Barrow is a big believer in redundancy. Dark Track has 6 1-horsepower car fan motors driven through 6 drivetrains to move the tracks. If he loses one motor or chain, he still has 5 in reserve. He also believes in a solid offense.
The weapon is a flipping wedge. The back surface of the robot will become the front surface when I'm actually against competition. That allows me to actually slide up underneath the competition, tip them up off the ground, and then drive them off a surface or whatever.
Dark Track can cruise at about 20 miles an hour, which to scale is like a real Army tank running at 250 miles an hour. As you can imagine, maneuvering at such high speed can take its toll on the machine.
When you take a sharp turn or do a spin on 0 axis, it would tend to derail the tank track. So I actually came up with some guides, some skid guides on the top and bottom of both sides of the rear tank track, because that's where the wheels are actually taking the drivetrain to the tracks. Up on the front, we have basically 2 types of weapons. We first of all have just a simple bumper to keep obstacles from slamming the surface of the robot and also to keep the tracks protected. And we also have a spike. And this spike can be pulled out and put at a different angle right here.
Barrow's career as an electrical engineer lacks the kind of mechanical tinkering that he loves. So that's why the mad scientist in him first came out. About 2 years ago, he learned how to weld. Then he had a robotic awakening.
I actually took a Yamaha 400 Seika motorcycle engine and grafted it to the back of a go-kart frame. I call it the supercart. It's basically a 40 horsepower go-kart, and it will probably outrun a Viper to 60. So that got me going into kind of some diabolical type of engineering.
Dark Track is diabolical, and Barrow would love nothing more than to roll right over Rambot.
Now, Dark Track, Rambot, and all the bots that compete on Robotica not only engage in combat with each other, they have to master a very tricky course as well. Here's what they're up against. The 4 bots in each episode of Robotica are split into 2 pairs, so that each bot faces just one opponent in competition. The first event is the Gauntlet, in which contestants must travel a diamond-shaped route and overcome wood, weighted cans, bricks, and a cement wall before clear-cutting the forest of glass. The second event is the Labyrinth, which includes very un-bot-friendly features: a sand trap, a suspension bridge, a flip ramp, spikes that shoot out of the floor, even pesky robotic rats with buzzsaws on their backsides. After these two events, the points leaders from each pair will meet in the fight to the finish. A modern-day duel played on an elevated platform. And this fight is only finished when one of the bots is thrown off the edge into oblivion. The bot left standing lives on and waits to fight again in the championship round. Now, surviving that course is going to take a lot of skill when it comes to driving your robot, as much skill as it takes to build it in the first place. Oftentimes, the last bot left standing has the best driver.
You've been thinking about the event for 6 weeks, and now this is the time. It's got to work. People spaz out up there. They're jamming their controls around. They're breaking knobs off their transmitters. It's nerve-wracking. It's like public speaking.
You know, your pulse accelerates and you get extremely nervous, but, you know, you just have to do it. I switched into autopilot, and, you know, I can't even tell you what happened during the match. Somebody else has to tell me afterwards.
It's a given that having a robust machine out on the course is important. But if your bot is not in the capable hands of the right driver, your Robotica appearance will likely end in disaster. It's common knowledge here at Robotica that 50% or more of this competition comes down to driving performance.
The rule of thumb is finish your drive platform early and put 20 or 30 hours of drive time. Wear through a set of tires. Learn how to drive that thing, driving away from you and coming back towards you when the controls are backwards.
I think the most important skill is probably playing a lot of video games, because you end up with a lot of eye-hand coordination and using a joystick, and being able to switch position on a joystick when the robot is coming towards you or going away from you. You have to reverse your thinking, of course, when that happens. So yeah, I think video games is real good practice.
Viper Revision 2's Mike Garrett feels very comfortable at the controls. He comes to Robotica with extensive radio-controlled plane experience.
One of the things you learn very early in flying an IC plane is that when the plane's flying towards you, the turn controls are reversed. So that if you appear to want to turn left, you actually have to move the stick to the right.
For first-time competitors like Dominic Caridi, who often come to Robotica with minimal driving experience, forward becoming reverse and left becoming right can be a real stumbling block, especially with a multi-functioning controller in hand.
Our suspension system, the bot, can be raised up and down by a suspension system that's controlled by the remote control. So that's also on the same joysticks as the forward and reverse and left and right turn in the other axes. So it all becomes pretty complicated.
Of course, no matter what your background is, the key to driving a combat-ready robot is practice, practice, and more practice.
It's critical that you practice in order to have a good show out in the arena. Because if you can't drive your robot, you're really not going to have much prayer. You have to negotiate difficult challenges. And with a lot of the conflicts that we have out here, like the sand corner and the speed bumps, one wrong move and it's all over.
Hoisted by the spike!
Continuing our inside look at TLC's Robotica, I'm Dawn Huser, and behind me is the lean, mean, 198-pound aluminum and Lexan Viper. It's time for you to meet its maker, Bob Allen. Robotica fans will surely remember Bob Allen's first version of Viper from Season 1. It trumped Panzer Mark I in the fight to the finish and advanced to the championship round.
3, 2, 1. There they go! Viper pushes Panzer Mark I over the edge! Yes! Viper takes it! Viper is going to the Robotica Championship!
In the finals, Viper kept pace with Juggerbot through the first two events, but eventually Viper was left in the dust.
There goes Juggerbot! Go, baby, go! Don't stop! Don't stop! Juggerbot takes it!
Now, Allen, an electronics consultant from Ben Lomond, California, is back with Viper Revision 2.
I think the biggest mistake is I overbuilt. Our last frame was made out of steel. It weighed about 75 pounds. It took up a lot of weight, and it was just overbuilt. Also speed. I think we were a little down in speed. So that's why we went to a whole aluminum frame that's all been milled out. Our new frame, which is probably just as strong as our steel frame, only weighs 27 pounds. So we dropped a lot of weight.
That's what gave Alan and teammate Mike Garrett room to add, among other things, a third battery for more power and speed. Viper 1 maxed out at about 4 miles an hour. This version goes 3 times that fast, and its weapon is new and improved as well.
We're going to use our front wedge, and I like to call it a tool rather than a weapon because, you know, it can't really do much damage to anybody. It's not like a spinning saw. We're not going to cut anybody, but we have the ability to move it up and down.
The venomous Viper Revision 2 is completely invertible, symmetrical on top and bottom. Alan is sticking with 6 wheels, 3 on each side, which give him skid steering and the ability to rotate 360 degrees.
Here we have 2 large 1.6 horsepower motors that we drive off of 36 volts, which we have 3 batteries under our sign here that are 12 volts apiece. And we've got two controllers, speed controllers, one here, which is for our 2 motors, drive motors, and then we have another one that is here that drives our wedge motor. And our wedge motor is up front, and we've got it geared down quite a bit where we can lift about 200 pounds.
It's often said here at Robotica that the bot is only as good as its builder. If that's the case, then the competition has good reason to fear Viper Revision 2, a product of Alan's experience and work ethic.
To discipline yourself to get the job done. You've got to look at it, and you've got to be able to see what needs to be done, and it's a discipline. Keep focused on the end result.
Don, Viper Revision 2's opponent is a bot named Particle Accelerator, built by office equipment repairman and remote control car addict Tom Hodo.
I've been building radio-controlled toys and cars and stuff longer than I've been repairing office equipment. My brain sort of clicks on ideas, and I try to follow through on them, and you see where they take you.
And that's how Particle Accelerator was born. It's a wide track bot designed to run into or over anything that stands in its way. The toughest part of the building process, according to Hodo, was getting the drivetrain right.
I have scrap sorters and stuff that I can get gears and motors and drive lines off of. And originally I was going to do that. And as I went along, I found that these motors didn't have the power to move the weight, and the drive belts didn't have the grip to actually pull something. So that's why it's gotten to industrial chain and sprockets.
Particle Accelerator is powered by 2 surplus wheelchair motors with integrated gearboxes, and its weapon is simple but very powerful. Of course, when it comes to competing against the veteran Viper team, Hodo knows that the bot he built on a slim $2,500 budget has little margin for error.
Basically, I came to play, I'll play.
You know, most of the skills here are mechanical. The bots are still mostly mechanical machines, but more and more often these teams are incorporating computers into their bots. Dave Hall's DeClaw has 8 onboard computers, 6 intelligent motor controllers, and 2 master controllers, which interface the radio command signals to the motors. At over $10,000, his bot is the most expensive and perhaps the most technologically advanced here at Robotica. But some contestants feel that onboard computers are more of a liability than an asset.
It's my personal feeling that one of the most important features of a robot is to be robust and work, and any additional complexity is something that's just one more thing to break. So one of the things we've tried to do is to make our machine as simple and bulletproof as possible.
there's no question the role of computers on board the robots will develop further and further as things move forward. Probably the next thing you'll start to see are semi-autonomous weapons, where there's some sort of sensor in front of the robot, and when the robot gets within proximity, if it's armed from the transmitter, bang, it'll launch automatically. So then it turns into more of a driving exercise for the robot controller.
As bot builders are putting more onboard computers and better off-the-shelf components into their designs, we can't help but look into the future of this sport and this very popular series. Where might Robotica be taking viewers in seasons to come? We put that question to the show's executive producer, Don Weiner.
I know it's going to get bigger. I know that the challenges are going to get bigger and better and stronger. We're thinking about how to deal with maybe autonomous robots in the future, creating challenges that are more than just speed and power, that take a lot more strategy, that force the robot to think as well as the builder to think, possibly. We want to start working in multi-dimensions, so it's not just a flat playing field. Maybe it's like three-dimensional chess. We want to take it to a point where it becomes a real arena show, where you've got your three-ring circus with multiple games laid out in front of a big arena audience. Big bots, little bots. It's hard to know. Robotica will have to keep up with the ingenuity of the builders and the strengths of the bots that they create for us.
You know, Don, at least potentially, there's no limits to what this robotic technology can do, especially when you consider autonomous robots who basically think for themselves. Where do you think the sport might go?
Well, I think for the sheer purpose of robot head-to-head competition on Robotica, I'd like to see flying bots. Now, that would be really cool. And what about underwater robot battles? That would be fun to watch. I think it would open the door for all kinds of weapons.
All right, well, maybe next year, Don. All right, that's it for Inside Robotica. For my co-host, Don Huser, I'm Pat Rogers. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.
You're plugged into the Science Channel's Tech Circuit, where geek is chic, and the future is now. Stay with us for more high-tech toys, only on the Science Channel.